I was staring at the bank statement in my hands, watching my tears blur the numbers on the page. $847,000. $847,000. Money I never knew existed. Money my husband had been hiding from me for 7 years. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the monthly transfers. $5,000 to L. Morrison rent. Every single month. For 4 years. And I knew exactly who L. Morrison was. But to understand how I ended up on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., clutching papers that proved my entire marriage was a lie, I need to take you back to the beginning. Back to when I thought I knew everything about the man I loved. Back to when our biggest financial stress was deciding whether we could afford to renovate the kitchen. Back to when I trusted him with every single part of my life. I met Daniel when I was 26, working as a high school English teacher in Portland. He was 31, a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown, and he came into the coffee shop where I was grading papers on a Saturday morning. I'll never forget how he approached my table, pointing at the pile of essays covered in red ink, and said, "Either you're a very harsh grader, or your students need serious help." I looked up, ready to be annoyed, but his smile was so genuine, so warm that I laughed instead. "A little of both," I admitted. We talked for 2 hours that day. He bought me 3 lattes. He made me laugh so hard I snorted coffee through my nose. He listened, really listened, when I talked about my students, my dreams of writing a novel someday, my complicated relationship with my mother. When he finally asked for my number, my hand was shaking as I wrote it down. Our courtship was storybook perfect. Daniel was thoughtful in ways I'd never experienced. He remembered that I loved white roses, not red. He learned to make my grandmother's apple pie recipe. When I got bronchitis and lost my voice for a week, he showed up at my apartment every evening with soup and throat lozenges, and he sat with me watching old movies, not expecting me to talk, just being there. He proposed after 18 months, on the same bench in the coffee shop where we'd met. The ring was perfect. A simple platinum band with a small diamond, exactly what I would have chosen for myself. "I don't want anything flashy," he'd said. "I want something that will last forever like us." We got married in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard. My father walked me down the makeshift aisle between rows of white folding chairs, and when I reached Daniel, he was crying. Actually crying. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," he whispered as I took his hands. "I promise I'll spend every day proving that I deserve you." I believed him completely. The first 3 years of our marriage were everything I dreamed of. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I continued teaching, and Daniel worked his way up to a manager position at his firm. We were comfortable, not wealthy, but we never worried about bills. We took modest vacations, camping trips, a week at the beach, visiting his family in California. Daniel handled our finances. It made sense. He was the accountant after all, and I'd always been terrible with numbers. We had a joint checking account for household expenses, and I had my own account for my teaching salary. Daniel said he had a savings account for emergencies, which seemed responsible and smart. I never questioned it. Why would I? We talked about having kids. Daniel wanted to wait until we were more financially stable. "I want to give them everything," he'd say. "Let's build up our savings first, maybe pay down the mortgage a bit." Seemed prudent, responsible. I loved that about him. How he thought about the future, how he planned for our family. I remember one specific evening about 4 years into our marriage, when we were sitting on our back porch, watching the sunset. I had just gotten a small raise at school, and I was excited to tell him. "That's great, honey," he said, kissing my forehead. Why don't you put the extra into your savings account? Build yourself a little nest egg. Shouldn't we put it toward the house? Yes. Or the emergency fund. We're fine, he assured me. I've been putting away money every month. We're in really good shape. You deserve to have your own money, Jess. For whatever you want. Felt so lucky. So blessed to have a husband who wanted me to have independence, who was securing our future, who was planning for the family we'd build together. God, I was so stupid. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Tuesday evening in October, about 5 years into our marriage. I came home from a particularly exhausting parent-teacher conference night around 8:30. Daniel's car was in the driveway, which was unusual. He'd been working late a lot recently, usually not getting home until 9 or 10. I walked in to find him at the kitchen table. His laptop open, papers spread everywhere. But the moment he heard the door, he slammed the laptop shut and quickly shuffled the papers into his briefcase. "Hey," I said, startled by the sudden movement. "You scared me." "Sorry," he said, his voice tight. "Just finishing up some work stuff. How were the conferences?" I started telling him about this one student's parents who refused to believe their son was plagiarizing essays, but I noticed Daniel wasn't really listening. He kept glancing at his briefcase, his leg bouncing under the table, a nervous habit he had. "Everything okay?" "Yes." "Yeah, fine. Just a stressful day." He stood up quickly, grabbing his briefcase. "I need to put this stuff away." He went to his home office, the small third bedroom we'd converted when he started working from home occasionally, and I heard the distinct sound of the door locking. We'd never locked doors in our house. We didn't even lock the bathroom door when we showered. When I asked him about it later, he said he'd been working on confidential client files and needed to be careful about leaving them out. Made sense. He was an accountant. Confidentiality was part of his job. I let it go. But after that night, the office door was always locked when he was in there. The second sign came a few weeks later. I was doing laundry. Daniel's jeans were in the pile, and I automatically checked the pockets before throwing them in the wash. I found a receipt from a restaurant called Bella Vita, an upscale Italian place downtown that we'd never been to. The date was from the previous Thursday, a night Daniel had texted me saying he had to work late and grabbed dinner at his desk. The receipt showed 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, tiramisu, and espresso. The bill was $187. For a work dinner, maybe. But Daniel always used the company card for work dinners, and this was clearly his personal credit card. My hands started shaking as I looked at the receipt. Who had he eaten dinner with? Why had he lied about working through dinner? I confronted him that evening, holding the receipt out. "Oh, that," he said, barely glancing at it. "Yeah, I had dinner with Marcus from the office. We were working on the Henderson account, and we needed to discuss some strategy. Easier to do it over a meal. You said you ate at your desk." "Did I?" He frowned like he was trying to remember. "I guess I forgot. It wasn't important. Just a work thing. It's a $187 work thing on your personal card." His expression hardened slightly. "Jess, are you seriously interrogating me about a work dinner? I've been busting my ass at the office, working 60-hour weeks. And you're giving me grief about having dinner with a colleague." "I'm not giving you grief, I'm just..." "What? You don't trust me? After everything I do for this family, for our future, you think I'm what? Lying to you?" The conversation had flipped so fast. Suddenly, I was the bad guy. I was the one being unreasonable. I apologized. He accepted it coolly, and things were tense for a few days. I never brought up the receipt again. But I kept it tucked into my journal, and I don't know why. Over the next several months, there were more signs. Small things that I noticed but explained away because the alternative was too painful to consider. Daniel started going to the gym at odd hours. He'd never been particularly fitness-focused before, but suddenly he was getting up at 5 a.m. to work out before work, or going at 9 p.m. after dinner. "I'm not getting any younger," he'd say. "Need to take care of myself." He bought new clothes, nicer clothes, expensive button-downs and designer jeans. When I commented on a particularly sharp new shirt, he said, "I got a raise. I can afford to look professional." A raise. When? Why didn't you tell me? A few weeks ago. It wasn't a big deal. Just a standard cost of living increase. But if it wasn't a big deal, why the new wardrobe? Why hadn't he mentioned it? He became protective of his phone in a way he'd never been before. It was always face down on the table. He took it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. He changed the passcode. I knew it used to be my birthday 0528, but one day I tried to use his phone to look up a recipe while mine was charging, and the code didn't work. "I had to change it for work security," he explained when I asked. "New company policy." His work hours became increasingly irregular. Some nights he'd be home at 6, cheerful and attentive. Other nights, he wouldn't show up until after 10, claiming he'd been stuck in meetings or dealing with difficult clients. The inconsistency was maddening because I never knew which Daniel I'd get. We stopped having sex as often. Not completely, we still had a physical relationship, but it decreased from a few times a week to maybe twice a month. When I tried to initiate, he was often too tired or too stressed from work. And the thing that bothered me most, he stopped talking about having kids. Whenever I brought it up, he'd say, "Let's wait a bit longer. I want to make sure we're really ready." But we'd been saying that for years. How much more ready did we need to be? I confided in my best friend, Rachel, over coffee one Saturday. I laid out all the signs, the locked office, the mysterious receipts, the phone protection, the late nights, the emotional distance. Rachel listened carefully, stirring her latte slowly. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Jess, I don't want to scare you, but you need to pay attention to your gut. These are classic signs." "Signs of what?" I asked, even though I knew. "You know what? I'm not saying he definitely is, but you need to protect yourself. Check the credit cards. See where the money is going. If there's nothing to hide, great. But if there is..." "I trust him," I said weakly. "Then prove yourself right," Rachel said. "Look at the statements. If everything is above board, you'll feel better. And if it's not, you need to know." I went home that day determined to check our finances. But when I logged into our joint checking account, I found exactly what I expected to find. Regular deposits of my teaching salary, regular payments for mortgage, utilities, groceries, and household expenses. Nothing suspicious. I didn't have access to Daniel's personal account or credit cards. They were in his name only, from before we were married, and I'd never thought to ask to be added. I didn't have access to the savings account he'd mentioned either. I didn't even know which bank it was at. That night, I asked Daniel if I could see our overall financial picture. "Why?" he asked immediately. His tone wasn't curious. It was defensive. "I just want to understand where we are. You always say we're saving, building toward the future, but I don't actually know what that looks like. How much do we have saved? What are our goals?" "We're fine, Jess. We're in great shape. You don't need to worry about it." "I'm not worried, I just want to be informed. We're married. Shouldn't I know about our finances?" His jaw tightened. "I handle the finances. That's always been our arrangement. You take care of the house, I take care of the money. It works. I also work full-time, Daniel. It's not like I'm a stay-at-home wife. I contribute. And I appreciate that. But this is my area. You're terrible with numbers, you've said so yourself. Let me do what I'm good at. He said it kindly, but there was steel underneath. The conversation was over. I didn't push it because I didn't want another fight. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing roots. The real turning point came on a Sunday afternoon in March. Daniel had gone to the gym, or so he said. I was cleaning out the coat closet, reorganizing winter jackets we'd be putting away soon, when I found a suit jacket of Daniel's I didn't recognize. It was expensive, charcoal gray, with a designer label I knew he couldn't afford on his salary. I checked the pockets out of habit. In the inside pocket I found a business card. Not Daniel's business card. A different one. It was thick, expensive cardstock, cream-colored with embossed gold lettering. Lincoln Private Bank Wealth Management Services. And written on the back in Daniel's handwriting. L. Morrison, Thursday 2 p.m. L. Morrison. I stood in the closet, holding that business card, and something in my chest went cold. Lincoln Private Bank wasn't where we had our regular accounts. And why would Daniel need a wealth management service? We were comfortable, but we weren't wealthy. I took a photo of the card with my phone and put it back exactly where I found it. That night, after Daniel went to bed, I Googled Lincoln Private Bank. It was a boutique bank that specialized in high-net-worth individuals. Their website talked about discretion, personalized service, and comprehensive wealth management for clients with complex financial needs. This made no sense. Daniel's salary was good. He made about $95,000 a year, but that wasn't high-net-worth territory. We had a modest house with a $280,000 mortgage. We drove practical cars. We weren't living a wealthy lifestyle. Unless he had money I didn't know about. The thought made me physically ill. I spent the next week in a fog of anxiety, watching Daniel, looking for more clues. And the more I watched, the more I saw. I noticed that Daniel's paychecks, which were direct deposited twice a month, were only showing partial amounts in our joint account. I'd never thought about it before. I assumed he was putting the rest into savings. But now I wondered, what if he was putting it somewhere else? Somewhere I couldn't see. I started keeping a journal, documenting everything. The nights he came home late. The times his story didn't quite match up. The new clothes. The expensive haircut he'd gotten at a salon that charged $80 for a men's cut. The way he'd become almost obsessive about checking his phone. One evening I came home early from school. We'd had a half-day for teacher professional development, and found Daniel on the phone in his office. The door was cracked open, and I could hear his voice before he noticed me. I know, but I can't this week. She's been suspicious. I need to be more careful. No, I'll make it work. Thursday, same place. I miss you too. He said, I miss you too. I stood frozen in the hallway, barely breathing. When he ended the call, I quickly moved to the kitchen and started making noise, clattering dishes, as if I'd just arrived home. He came out of his office, smiling, giving me a kiss on the cheek like nothing was wrong. How was the workshop? He asked. Fine. Boring. The usual. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Who were you talking to? Oh, just Marcus. We're trying to coordinate a client meeting. Marcus. His go-to excuse. I wondered if Marcus even existed. That night I barely slept. I lay next to my husband, watching his chest rise and fall, and I didn't recognize him. Who was this person? How long had he been lying to me? The discovery came 3 weeks later, and it wasn't even something I was looking for. Daniel's laptop was open on the kitchen table. He'd been working from home that day, and he'd run out to grab lunch. He never left his laptop open and unattended. Never. But this time he had. I walked past it on my way to the fridge. I wasn't even thinking about snooping. But as I passed, I glanced at the screen and I saw it. An email from Lincoln Private Bank. Dear Mr. Brennan, your monthly statement is ready for review. My heart started pounding. I looked toward the window. Daniel's car was still gone. I had maybe 10 minutes before he'd be back. I sat down at the laptop. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely work the trackpad. I clicked on the email. It required a password to view the statement. I tried our anniversary. Won't. I tried his birthday. Won't. I tried my birthday. Won't. I had one more try before the system would lock me out. I sat there breathing hard trying to think. What would Daniel use as a password for a secret account? And then it hit me. L. Morrison. I typed. L. Morrison 1. The statement opened. What I saw made the room spin. The account name was Daniel Brennan Individual Account. The current balance, $847,362.14. $847,000. I scrolled down with shaking hands. The account had been opened 7 years ago, just months after our wedding. 7 years of deposits. Small at first, $500 here, $800 there. But growing. In the last few years, he'd been depositing $3,000 to $5,000 per month. Money that should have been in our joint account. Money that should have been going toward our future. Money he'd been hiding from me. But that wasn't all. As I scrolled through the transactions, I saw them. Monthly transfers of $5,000 to L. Morrison rent. Every month. Going back 4 years. He was paying someone's rent. For 4 years. $5,000 a month. That's $240,000. He'd given this person $240,000. I kept scrolling, my vision blurring with tears. There were other transactions too. Charges at expensive restaurants. A jewelry purchase for $8,000. A payment to a luxury hotel in downtown Portland. $1,200 for a weekend stay. Flowers delivered. $150 every few weeks. Always to the same address. I grabbed my phone and searched for the address where the rent payments were going. 1247 Pearl Street, Unit 304. It was a luxury apartment building in the Pearl District. Modern. Expensive. The kind of place we'd joked about never being able to afford. Clicked on Street View. The building had floor-to-ceiling windows, a doorman, and a rooftop terrace. The rent for a one-bedroom in that building started at $4,000 a month. For a two-bedroom, which $5,000 would cover, you'd get premium finishes, city views, and amenities we'd never dreamed of. Who the fuck was L. Morrison? I heard Daniel's car pull into the driveway. In a panic, I closed the email, cleared the browser history, and moved away from the laptop. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. When Daniel walked in carrying a bag from the deli, I was standing at the sink, gripping the counter, trying to look normal. "Hey babe," he said cheerfully. "I got you a sandwich. Turkey on wheat, right?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded. He set the bag down and walked over, wrapping his arms around me from behind, kissing my neck. "You okay? You look pale." "Just tired," I managed to say. "Well, eat something. You'll feel better." He grabbed his laptop and headed to his office. "I've got a 2 o'clock call. I'll be in here for about an hour." The moment his office door closed, I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I called Rachel from my car, parked in the school lot even though it was Saturday. I could barely get the words out. "He has a secret bank account. Almost $1 million. And he's been paying someone's rent. Woman. L. Morrison. For 4 years, Rachel. 4 years. Oh my God. Jess, oh my God. I don't know what to do. I don't know who she is. I don't know how to. I couldn't finish. I was crying too hard. Listen to me, Rachel said, her voice firm. You need to document everything. Take photos of those statements. Get evidence. And then you need to talk to a lawyer. A lawyer? Yes, Jess. Divorce lawyer. Because even if you somehow work this out, you need to protect yourself. He's been hiding money from you. That's financial infidelity. And in a divorce, that matters. Divorce. The word hit me like a punch. I'd been married to Daniel for 7 years. I'd planned my entire life around him. Now, I need to know who she is first, I said. I need to understand what's happening. Be careful, Rachel warned. Don't do anything that puts you in danger. If he's been hiding this much, God knows what else he's capable of. That thought terrified me. But I had to know. On Monday evening, I told Daniel I had a book club meeting and wouldn't be home until late. Instead, I drove to 1247 Pearl Street. I sat in my car across the street from the building watching. It was 6:30 p.m. If someone lived there, they might be coming home from work soon. At 7:15, a woman walked up to the building entrance. She was young, maybe late 20s, with long dark hair and a stylish coat. She looked confident, successful, beautiful. She used a key fob to enter the building. I wanted to be sick. I wanted to scream. I wanted to storm into that building and confront her. But I sat there, frozen, watching the lit windows of the building, wondering which one was hers. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that my book club alibi would be over. I finally drove home in a daze. Daniel was on the couch watching TV when I got home. How was book club? He asked. Good, I lied. What did you discuss? I couldn't even remember what book I was supposed to have been discussing. Just relationships, trust, betrayal. He didn't even flinch. Sounds heavy. Come here. He patted the couch next to him. I sat down and he put his arm around me, pulling me close. He smelled like his cologne, the same scent he'd worn for years. His body was warm and familiar. And I felt nothing but revulsion. This man, my husband, the person I'd trusted with everything, was a stranger. Over the next week I became obsessed. I created a fake email account and tried to search for L. Morrison on social media. There were hundreds of them. I couldn't narrow it down without more information. I drove by the Pearl Street building 3 more times, but I never saw the dark-haired woman again. I went back into Daniel's email whenever I got the chance. I learned to clear my tracks perfectly. I found more evidence, emails to Elle talking about their place, about missing her, about hating living a lie. He was in love with her. It wasn't just an affair. He loved her. Maybe more than he'd ever loved me. I found a folder of photos he'd hidden in a cloud storage account. Photos of them together. The dark-haired woman from the building, laughing, sitting in restaurants, lying on a beach somewhere. One photo showed her wearing a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a diamond pendant. The same $8,000 jewelry purchase I'd seen on the bank statement. There were dozens of photos. Years' worth. This wasn't a fling. This was a whole other life. In one photo, she was standing in what looked like the apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows with a city view behind her. She was wearing his shirt, morning light streaming through the windows, smiling at the camera with this look of complete adoration. I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. She looked happy. He looked happy in these photos in a way I couldn't remember him looking with me in years. Who was I in his life? The wife he was stuck with. The boring high school teacher who didn't understand his real world. The obstacle he had to work around to be with the woman he actually wanted. I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Her name was Margaret Chen, and she came highly recommended by Rachel's sister, who'd gone through a messy divorce 2 years earlier. I sat in Margaret's office, which had a view of the Willamette River, and I told her everything. I showed her the screenshots I'd taken of the bank statements. I showed her the photos. Margaret listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and studied me. "Mrs. Brennan, I need to be very direct with you. What your husband has done, hiding assets, creating secret accounts, funneling marital money into those accounts, this is serious financial fraud within a marriage. In Oregon, this could significantly impact the divorce settlement." "I don't care about the money," I said, and I meant it. "I just want out." "You should care about the money," Margaret said firmly. "He stole from your marriage. That money should have been building your shared future. Instead, he used it to maintain a secret life and, from what you've shown me, another woman. You are entitled to half of all marital assets, including that secret account. And given his deception, you may be entitled to more." I had never thought of myself as someone who would fight over money in a divorce. But sitting there, hearing Margaret lay it out, I felt something shift inside me. Anger. Real burning anger. He didn't just betray me emotionally. He stole from me. For 7 years, he'd been taking money that should have been ours and giving it to her. While I was teaching teenagers for $58,000 a year and worrying about whether we could afford to fix the leaky roof, he had almost $1 million hidden away. What do I do? Yes. First, we need to secure evidence. You've done well with the screenshots, but we need official documentation. I'm going to file a motion for discovery. This will force him to disclose all financial accounts and assets. He won't be able to hide anything once we're in legal proceedings. But he'll know I'm divorcing him. Yes. And honestly, Mrs. Brennan, you need to confront this. The longer you wait, the more time he has to hide assets or move money. We need to act quickly. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. Once I stepped off, there was no going back. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." Margaret advised me to gather as much documentation as possible before I confronted Daniel. So I spent the next week living this bizarre double life. During the day, I taught my classes, graded papers, smiled at colleagues. At night, I went home and played the role of wife, made dinner, asked about his day, pretended everything was normal. And whenever Daniel was out of the house or busy in his office, I gathered evidence. I photographed every document I could find. I found credit card statements showing expensive dinners, gifts, hotel stays. I found receipts for things we didn't own. I created a folder on my personal cloud storage with hundreds of pages of proof. I also did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Tom Rodriguez, and he was recommended by Margaret. He was in his 50s, balding, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "I need to know who she is," I told him in our first meeting. "I need to know everything." Tom nodded. "I'll find out. Give me a week." Took him 5 days. Tom called me at school during my lunch period. "I have a full report. Can you come to my office after work?" I drove straight to his office after the final bell rang, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Tom handed me a folder. Inside was a dossier on Lisa Morrison. Lisa. Not just L. Morrison. Lisa. She was 29 years old. A marketing executive at a tech company in Portland. She'd graduated from UCLA with a degree in business. She drove a BMW. She had an active social media presence, though I noticed Daniel was nowhere in her photos. And the kicker, she'd been working at Daniel's accounting firm. That's how they'd met. She'd been a client coordinator there from 2019 to 2021, before moving to her current job. They'd met at work. This had started while she was working with him. While I was at home, grading papers, making dinner, being his wife, he was falling in love with someone at his office. "There's more," Tom said quietly. "I followed your husband for the past few days. He's been going to her apartment 3 times a week. Tuesday and Thursday evenings and Sunday afternoons. He tells you he's at the gym or running errands, but he goes to her place. Stays for 2 to 3 hours. 3 times a week. Our entire marriage, he'd been seeing her 3 times a week." "Does she know he's married?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know. But I'd guess yes. She's had the apartment for 4 years, which matches the rent payments you found. She's never been seen with any other romantic partner. And..." Tom hesitated. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Brennan, but there's one more thing." He showed me a photo. It was Daniel and Lisa walking down the street together. Lisa's left hand was visible. She was wearing an engagement ring. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of Tom's desk to steady myself. "He's engaged to her." "Yes." "How?" "We're still married." "I don't know the details," Tom said. "But yes, she's been wearing that ring for about 3 months. I checked her social media. She hasn't announced an engagement publicly, which makes sense if he's married. But multiple photos show the ring. So that was his plan. He was going to keep stringing me along, keep hiding money, keep building his nest egg, and then what? Divorce me and immediately marry her. Had he been planning this for years? Or was he planning to just disappear? Leave me with nothing, take his hidden fortune, and start a new life with Lisa? The rage that rose up in me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was white-hot and all-consuming. This man had stolen 7 years of my life. He'd made me doubt myself, gaslight myself, feel crazy for being suspicious. He'd let me teach at a job I loved, but that didn't pay much, telling me we were saving for our future, when really he was saving for his future with someone else. I went home that night and acted normal. Cooked spaghetti. We ate dinner. We watched a show on Netflix. Daniel put his arm around me on the couch, and I let him, even though his touch made my skin crawl. When we went to bed, he tried to initiate sex. I pretended I had a headache. He sighed, kissed my forehead, and rolled over. I lay in the dark next to him, listening to his breathing even out as he fell asleep. I wondered if he'd been with her earlier. If he'd showered before coming home to me. If he'd told her he loved her before he came home to tell me the same lie. I had made my decision. I was going to confront him, but I was going to do it my way. The next morning was Saturday. Daniel usually went to the gym or to Lisa's on Saturday mornings. But I woke up before him and made a big breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, the works. "What's the occasion?" he asked, coming into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "No occasion. Just felt like cooking. Eat." We ate breakfast together, and I made small talk about my students, about a funny meme Rachel had sent me about the weather. Normal. Easy. Like nothing was wrong. After breakfast, Daniel said he was going to the gym. "Actually," I said, "can you skip the gym today? I want to talk to you about something." His expression shifted slightly. "About what?" "Our future. Our finances. The stuff we talked about before. I just want us to be on the same page." I could see him calculating, trying to figure out if this was a trap. But he smiled. "Sure, babe. Let me just change out of these workout clothes." When he came back, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. "So," I said calmly, I want to understand where we are financially. How much do we have saved? Jess, we've been over this. I know what you've said. But I want to see it. I want you to show me our accounts. All of them. Why now? Why the sudden interest? Because we've been married for 7 years, Daniel. And I don't actually know anything about our financial situation. You've always just told me we're fine, we're saving, trust you. And I have trusted you. But I'm realizing that's not healthy. We should be partners in this. He looked uncomfortable. Okay. Fine. Let me pull up the accounts. He grabbed his laptop and logged into our joint checking account. See. This is what we have here. About $8,000 in checking. What about savings? We have about $15,000 in savings. He showed me the account. That's it. After 7 years of marriage, we have $15,000 saved. Well, the house equity. Besides the house. In liquid savings, we have $15,000. It's not that simple, Jess. We've had expenses. The roof repair last year was $8,000. The new HVAC was $6,000. Cars need maintenance. Life is expensive. You make $95,000 a year. I make $58,000. That's $153,000 a year. Even with all our expenses, we should have more saved. He was getting defensive now. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking where the money is going. It's going to our life. Our mortgage, our bills, our... What about Lincoln Private Bank? Said. The color drained from his face. For a long moment he just stared at me. Then he said very carefully, "What are you talking about?" I opened my laptop and turned it to face him. On the screen was the statement I'd photographed. The $847,000 account. Every transaction. Every payment to Lisa Morrison. This, I said. I'm talking about this. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel stared at the screen. His mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Finally he said, "How did you go through my personal files? That's what you're worried about. Not the fact that you've been hiding nearly $1 million from me, but that I found out about it. That's my money, Jess. That's money I saved before we got married. The account was opened 4 months after our wedding, Daniel. You can see the date right here. And even if it had existed before, we've been married for 7 years. In Oregon, that makes it marital property." He stood up abruptly, pacing. "You had no right to snoop through my things. And you had no right to steal from our marriage." I was yelling now, and I didn't care. 7 years, Daniel. 7 years you've been lying to me. Taking money that should have been ours and hiding it. For what? For her. Her. He tried to look confused, but the guilt was written all over his face. Lisa Morrison. Your girlfriend. Your fiancée, actually, based on the ring she's wearing. I pulled up the photo Tom had given me and shoved my phone in Daniel's face. The woman you've been paying $5,000 a month to keep in a luxury apartment. The woman you've been seeing 3 times a week. The woman you've apparently been planning to leave me for. Daniel's face went from red to white. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. I can explain, he started. Really? You can explain how you've been having an affair for 4 years. How you've funneled $240,000 in rent payments to your mistress. How you've bought her jewelry, taken her on trips, built an entire life with her while lying to my face every single day. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Daniel? Enlighten me. He sank into a chair, putting his head in his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes, but I felt nothing but contempt. I fell in love with her, he said quietly. I didn't mean to. It just happened. When? When did it just happen? About 4 years ago. She was working at the firm. We got assigned to a project together. We started talking and then, I don't know. She understood me in a way that you don't. The words were like knives. I don't understand you. You're a teacher, Jess. You live in this world of books and students and lesson plans. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the stress of my job, So you decided to cheat on me and steal from our marriage because I'm a teacher? Because my job isn't prestigious enough for you. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? He was crying harder now. I love her. I'm sorry, but I do. I love her and I want to be with her. I've wanted to tell you for years, but I couldn't figure out how. I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed. Actually laughed, at the absurdity of that statement. You didn't want to hurt me. You've been lying to me for 4 years. You've been stealing money from our marriage. You bought her an engagement ring while you're still married to me. But you didn't want to hurt me. I was trying to find the right time. The right time to what? To tell me you've been living a double life. That you've built a future with someone else using money you stole from us. When was the right time going to be, Daniel? After you drained our accounts completely. After you disappeared. I wasn't going to disappear. I was going to ask for a divorce. I just needed to figure out the logistics. The logistics? Is that what you call hiding almost $1 million? Making sure you're set up with your mistress while I'm left with nothing. You wouldn't be left with nothing. You'd get half the house. Half of a house with a $280,000 mortgage while you ride off into the sunset with your secret fortune and your new fiancé? How generous of you. He had no answer for that. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I said very calmly, I want you out of this house. Today. Jess. Today, Daniel. Pack your things and leave. Go to Lisa's. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But you're not staying here. This is my house too. And it's my house. And I'm not going to share it with you for one more second. So you can either leave voluntarily, or I can call the police and show them the evidence of your financial fraud. Your choice. He knew I had him. He knew I had documentation, proof, everything. If this went to court, he'd be destroyed. Fine, he said bitterly. I'll pack a bag. Took him 2 hours to pack. I sat on the couch, numb, listening to him move around upstairs, opening drawers, zipping suitcases. When he came downstairs with 2 large suitcases, he looked at me one more time. I never meant for it to be like this, he said. But it is like this, I replied. And that's on you. He left without another word. I watched through the window as he loaded his car and drove away. Then I went upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and I cried until I couldn't breathe. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and documentation. Margaret filed for divorce and for full financial discovery. Daniel tried to claim that the Lincoln private bank account was separate property, but the forensic accountant Margaret hired proved that he'd been funneling money from his paychecks, money that should have gone into our joint account, into that secret account for years. The accountant also discovered something I hadn't known. Daniel had been claiming me as a dependent on his taxes, getting a larger refund, and then pocketing that money instead of putting it toward our joint finances. He'd been cheating the system in every possible way. When everything was tallied up, the secret account, the hidden assets, the money he'd stolen from our marriage, the total was over $900,000. Margaret was relentless. She argued that not only should I get half of all marital assets, but that Daniel should be penalized for his fraud and deception. She painted a picture of a man who had systematically stolen from his wife, gaslight her, and maintained a second life while pretending to be a devoted husband. The judge was not sympathetic to Daniel. In the end, I was awarded 65% of all marital assets, including the house and $585,000 from Daniel's secret accounts. I also got a portion of his pension and future earnings to compensate for the years of financial abuse. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue that Lisa Morrison was entitled to some of the money since he'd spent so much on her, but the judge shut that down immediately. Mr. Brennan made choices about how to spend marital funds without his wife's knowledge or consent. Those were his choices, not hers. Mrs. Brennan is not responsible for reimbursing him for money. He essentially stole from her to maintain an affair. The whole process took 8 months. 8 months of depositions, court dates, and reliving every moment of betrayal. But when it was finally over, I was free. I found out through Rachel, who heard it from a mutual friend, that Daniel and Lisa got married about a year after our divorce was finalized. They had a small ceremony, nothing fancy. I wondered if she knew that the engagement ring she was wearing had been paid for with money that was supposed to be building a future with me. I also heard that Daniel's career took a hit. Word got around about the divorce, about the financial fraud. His firm quietly let him go, and he had trouble finding another position at his level. Turns out, companies don't love hiring accountants with a history of hiding money and lying. I didn't feel sorry for him. Not even a little bit. As for me, I took some of the settlement money and paid off the house completely. I took some more and invested it, setting myself up with a financial advisor who taught me everything I needed to know about managing money, something I'd been told I was too stupid to understand. I kept teaching because I love it. But I also started writing again, that novel I'd always dreamed about. It's almost finished now. It's about a woman who discovers her entire life is a lie and has to rebuild from scratch. Funny how that works. I'm dating again cautiously. Nothing serious yet. I'm in no rush. I'm learning to trust myself again, to listen to my instincts, to not ignore red flags because I want to believe the best in someone. Rachel jokes that I should write a self-help book called How to Trust Your Gut When Your Husband is a Lying Thief. Maybe I will someday. Looking back now, I can see all the signs I missed. Or rather, the signs I saw but chose to ignore because accepting them would have meant accepting that my marriage was a lie. It's easier to make excuses, to rationalize, to convince yourself that you're being paranoid. But here's what I learned. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you have to talk yourself out of your own suspicions, that's a red flag. If you're afraid to ask questions because you don't want to seem like you don't trust your partner, that's a problem. Trust should be easy. It should be the default, not something you have to work to maintain while your partner actively deceives you. I also learned that financial abuse is real and devastating. Daniel didn't just break my heart. He stole years of financial security from me. He made decisions about our money without my input, then hid those decisions from me. That's not love. That's control. That's abuse. If you're reading this and any of it sounds familiar, if your partner is secretive about money, if you don't have access to accounts, if you're told you're too stupid or too emotional to handle finances, please protect yourself. Get your own bank account. Get your own credit card. Document everything. And if you need to leave, talk to a lawyer before you confront your partner. I wish I'd done some things differently. I wish I'd confronted Daniel sooner. I wish I'd trusted my instincts instead of his lies. I wish I'd demanded access to our finances from the beginning. But I also know that I did the best I could with the information I had. And when I finally knew the truth, I acted. I protected myself. I fought for what I deserved. And that's something. The house is quiet now. It's just me, and honestly, that's okay. I've learned to love the silence. There's no one to lie to me, No one to make me doubt myself. No one to steal from me. Sometimes late at night I think about that moment in the kitchen when I turned the laptop around and showed Daniel the evidence. The look on his face, shock, fear, guilt, it's burned into my memory. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment I stopped being a victim and started being a survivor. I don't know what Daniel's life is like now. I don't know if he and Lisa are happy or if the foundation of lies they built their relationship on has started to crumble. I don't know if he regrets what he did or if he's convinced himself he was justified. And honestly, I don't care. My life is mine now. My money is mine. My future is mine. And no one, not Daniel, not anyone, will ever take that from me again. If you're going through something similar, know this. You're stronger than you think. You can survive this. You can rebuild. And the life you build on the other side of betrayal, the life built on truth and self-respect, will be so much better than the lie you were living. Trust yourself. Protect yourself. And never ever ignore that voice in your head that says something's wrong. That voice is trying to save you. Listen to it.